the light never buzzed before. But now it pulses like a heartbeat when no one's around. I moved my chair 3 inches last Thursday, and today it was back where it was before. There is a window on the 4th floor they tell me doesn't exist, but I watched something breathe behind it for weeks. I'm not recording this for attention. I'm not that kind of broken. I'm doing this because my hands won't stop shaking unless I say it all out loud. I worked as a psychiatric intake nurse for 12 years before I stopped. Suddenly, no warning, I filed no report, gave no notice, didn't even take the photographs from my locker. I just left my keys on the counter at the Wing B reception and walked out the west entrance like I had somewhere better to be. No one called. No one asked why. And I think that's part of it. Like they expected me to disappear. The building used to be a tuberculosis hospital. Then it was state-run, a hot, moss-wet cube of gray brick in northern Florida, where the air always smells like wet paper. Florida State Hospital. Yeah, the one they shut down part of in the 90s. But the staff kept working there, unofficially, under department orders. They just stopped calling it active. We weren't supposed to say Wing B anymore. We were told to treat it as off-access inventory space. But that's where they kept us rotating. Only certain staff, in short shifts, no records, no clocks. We were told the patients there were part of a legal holding protocol. They didn't give us more than that. Observe, but do not engage. Record, but do not review. That's what it said on the shift cards they used to hand out before everything went digital. At first, it was normal. Or as normal as Florida psych gets, a few men in wheelchairs who stared at the floor and refused water. One woman who counted her own teeth every 20 minutes. A boy who wrote something on the wall in dust every night, but wiped it away before rounds. They never spoke, never slept, never blinked. If I'm honest, I figured they were drugged into that state chemical sedation so deep they'd become wall furniture. But then it started. The shift. I remember the first sign. A chair was facing the corner, just one green vinyl seat turned all the way around, quietly, sometime between 4 and 5 a.m. No one touched it, no one logged it, but it moved again the next night, then again the night after that, sometimes an inch, sometimes just enough to feel wrong. Then came the water. The sinks in B-Wing were bone dry for years, I know, because we kept warning the custodians to stop sending in service requests. But in February, on my 3rd week there, I heard a drip, not loud, just soft, deliberate, like someone was waiting until I was alone to let it fall. I followed the sound to the last room on the left, one that never had a patient in it. Just a metal gurney and a filing cabinet sealed shut with red wax. There was no water, no pipe, no valve. But the drip was echoing from somewhere near the vent and stood there for maybe 6 minutes, just listening. Like if I stayed long enough, it would explain itself. But it didn't. That's when the dreams began. I'd fall asleep in the staff rec room during downtime and wake up unable to move my arms. Always my arms. I couldn't speak or breathe properly until I saw the green light from the vending machine. Then I could move again. I thought it was just stress or narcolepsy or whatever syndrome you blame when your brain tries to kill you from the inside. But then I started waking up already in the hallway. Standing, facing the restricted room again. Room 116B, the one with the sealed cabinet and the drip that didn't exist. I asked around casually. At first, you can't come out and say, "Hey, are you sleepwalking into sealed wards and hallucinating chairs?" You have to be subtle. I asked if the vents were ever active. I asked if there were still utility lines under the wing. And that's when one of the older night nurses, Carol, looked at me for a little too long before saying, "You're new to B, huh?" That's all she said. But the way she said it made me colder than the room. That night, I brought a recorder. Not the digital kind. They always hiss in that building. I used an old cassette micro recorder from the loss and found I hid it inside a supply drawer. I hit record at 2:07 a.m., and by 5 a.m., it was gone. Not the tape, the drawer. The entire drawer was just gone. The cabinet was there, but the third drawer didn't exist anymore, as if no one had ever welded it on. But I felt it. I opened it. I placed the recorder inside. I know how this sounds. I know what you're thinking. Bad sleep, trauma loops, grief hallucinations. But I wasn't grieving. I wasn't tired. And I wasn't alone that night. Security footage later showed me walking down the hall with another figure. Only no one could agree on who it was. Some said it was the pharmacist. Others said it was a patient in paper scrubs. But no one had been checked in or out that shift, and the camera feed cut to static 5 seconds after we turned the corner toward room 116B. There's a protocol they don't write down, but every long-timer knows it. When you see static on a feed, you don't rewind. You delete immediately, like it's radioactive. They used to say it corrupted the other files. That once static spread on the footage, it didn't stop, it crawled. One nurse said it made the other video loops. Wrong, like people moved before their limbs did. Like voices came in before mouths opened. I ignored it. I couldn't help it. I needed to know if someone else had been down that hallway. So I asked IT to send me the segment under the pretense of reviewing patient movement. And when it arrived, it came with a note I've never forgotten. It said, "Playback disabled. This file is for suppression only. Suppression, not deletion, not review, just burying." That's when I knew it was bigger. Not haunted, not cursed. Just covered carefully, repeatedly, with state-funded silence. I started keeping my own records. Pen only, never digital. Because I noticed something every time I typed anything about Wing B into a work terminal, the session would time out. But only if I typed those two words, Wing B, Wing B, Wing B 3 times, and the whole machine would freeze. So I wrote it down, by hand, and I hid the notebook behind a tile in the north stairwell. It's probably still there. Unless someone found it. Unless someone is listening to this right now, holding it. Turning the pages and realizing how long this has been going on, because it didn't start with me. There was someone before. Her name was Delia Thompson. She worked the desk in B-Wing in the late 80s. I found her name on a folded incident card, left inside a desk drawer. No digital record of her no-employee file, but the incident card was still there. Dated 1987, observed protocol breach, unauthorized patient speech. That's all it said. Then her name. Then nothing. But that's not the part that got me. What got me was the penmanship, because it was mine, exactly mine. Same angle, same lowercase r, same slant on the F. I didn't write it, but it looked like I did. Like someone had been practicing, or like someone had used my hand before I was born. There was no Delia Thompson in the payroll archive, no Delia in the credentialing system. But when I checked the old shift logs, the handwritten ones from before '92, Her name was everywhere. Logged in 4 times a week for 6 years straight, but always crossed out in red pencil, always the same line through it, like she was allowed to exist. But only until someone saw her. Then she had to be erased again. That's when I understood the vent, the one in 116B. It's not for air, it's not even connected to the building system. It's welded over at the top, sealed shut with a screen from the inside. But something inside it moved when I got close. Not violently, just enough, like breath on your cheek when no one's behind you. It moved when I said the name Delia, just that I didn't sleep for 3 days. I stopped signing my real name at work. I stopped walking on the left side of the corridor. I stopped looking into reflective surfaces, even off the floor polish, because my face kept lagging just by a second, just long enough to see it blink when I didn't. They moved my shift to afternoons after that, said it was a scheduling error, but I knew it wasn't. No one swaps from overnight to afternoons without notice unless something's been logged. But when I checked the master schedule, my old hours had been wiped. Like I was never there after 6 p.m., like the night never remembered me, and I realized something deeper than panic, deeper than fear. I realized I had been edited, not fired, not erased, just trimmed. Like a bad frame in a reel that skips too much. That was when I stopped trusting rooms because they weren't consistent. I'd walk into the medicine locker and come out facing the wrong hallway. I'd turn a corner and the exit would be 2 doors closer than it was yesterday. The elevator opened to blank drywall once. No shaft, no cables, just silence and a sticker that said, "Temporarily out of order." Only that sticker had the old logo, the circular blue FSH seal they stopped using in '94. I tested it, I drew chalk lines, made small marks behind file cabinets, threaded dental floss across supply carts. Every day I checked them, every day something was different. Sometimes the line was missing. Sometimes the floss had been cut and retied in the same knot I used, exactly the same. Like something was watching and wanted me to know I'd been seen. I should have left, I should have burned the notebook and filed a medical leave, but there's something they don't tell you about places like that. When the unreality starts, it doesn't push you away. It invites you in, not with words, but with something older. Something that lives between routines and glances and silences that last a half second too long. I didn't dream anymore. Not in the normal way. I started waking up with phrases in my mouth, still warm, like I'd just said them. I'd wake up mid-sentence. The threshold must be maintained. He retained too much across threshold variation. Things I don't say. Words I don't use, clinical phrasing. Like from a report, or worse, a hearing. And I think that's when I started to remember what hadn't happened yet. They told us there was no active research, that Wing B was purely transitional, just a legal term for patients with unclear commitment status. But I saw the pages, they weren't even hidden, just stacked behind a fake back panel in the archives, labeled Recompliance Retention, Cohort 3A. Most of it was redacted, but I remember one sentence because it didn't sound like English. Not bad grammar, just the kind of logic that falls off the edge of your understanding. It said, Subject 0142 exhibits liminal permanency post-dissonance. Memory echoes exceed acoustic thresholds. That one line, I swear it has been echoing in my skull since I read it. Liminal permanency memory echoes. like they were recording something beyond what a body could hold. I started to check the vents again, not for noise, but for patterns. The vent in 116B wasn't the only one. There were 5 others. Exact same model, same welds, same angle placed in an exact pentagon if you traced them on a map of the floor and at the center of that shape. Nothing, just a blank square on the blueprint labeled utility space no access. But there was a door, and it wasn't locked, just heavy old, the kind of door that swings slow and seals itself behind you with a sound like being buried alive. I went in alone one morning when the floor nurse was out back smoking. Inside it was pitch black, no light, no switch, only a single sound, breathing but not close. Far like it was coming from inside the walls, I stepped forward and the air changed. Thicker, like walking into a different altitude, and then I saw it. A chair. Green vinyl, same one from the other wing. But this one was facing the wall with a name tag on the back. Delia. That's when it snapped. Not just my nerves, but the timeline. Because the second I touched that chair, just my fingers, not even a full grip, I remembered things I shouldn't. Shifts I never worked. Voices I never heard, patients I never met, but they were mine. I could feel them like phantom limbs of a life I never lived. There was a child 5 years old, wore the same red shirt every time he never looked at me. But I loved him, I felt it like marrow. And then there was a man, middle-aged, surgical scar across the collarbone. He whispered things when no one else could hear, and I knew his name. Not from the logs, but from inside, like someone had folded it into my brain. Decades ago, I pulled back, ran out, didn't sleep for days. And when I tried to report it, the director told me I'd been transferred 3 weeks prior, said I hadn't worked in Wing B since March. But it was June, and I had the badge logs, every entry, every exit. My card had scanned in daily, same hallway, same hour I showed them, and the director smiled, not a kind smile, but the kind that says, "It's already done." I checked my locker that night. Everything was gone, even my stethoscope. But taped to the back wall, where my coat used to hang, was a photo of me, not smiling, not posing, just standing in the hallway, facing the sealed door of room 116B, and behind me, in the grain of the photo, a shadow thin bent, like something learning to stand. I don't remember the picture being taken, but I remember the clothes I was wearing because I threw them out months ago. Bloodstain on the sleeve I could never explain, only there in certain light. I tried to call Carol, the old nurse. Her number was disconnected, tried to find her online, nothing. I asked a few of the day shift staff. Blank stares, Carol who? So I did what I swore I wouldn't. I went back. Not through the front, through the woods. There's a service entrance near the generator. No cameras, no lock anymore, just a broken chain and a dent in the fence. The hallway was different. Narrower ceiling, lower than I remembered. Like the building had shrunk just enough to make you second-guess your own bones. But the door was still there, the one to the utility space. Still unmarked, still sealed with air that felt like heavy water, and inside the chair, but not empty this time. She was sitting there, not moving, not breathing, just waiting. Her back to me, hair gray, long, wearing the same white shoes all the nurses wore back then, and on the floor beside her, a tape recorder, not mine, older, maybe 80s, labeled Session B Delta, retain until silence. I stepped closer, felt my knees go soft, and as I reached down to touch the tape, she turned, not fast, just enough for me to see her face, and it was mine, older, worn, like someone had let 30 years roll across my skin without asking. But it was me. And she spoke not loud, just enough to hear over the silence. She said, "You weren't supposed to remember this time." And I swear to you, I felt my name leave me, like a string being pulled out through the roof of my mouth. I ran. Again, I know that sounds useless, but that's all you can do when time folds and yourself unthreads. You run and you hope the loop forgets you, but it didn't. Because the next morning, I woke up in bed. No dirt, no tape, no evidence except one thing, a crease in the sheet next to me. As if someone had sat there all night, waiting, I stopped going outside after that. The light changed on me. Things cast double shadows for just a second longer than they should. And when I stood at the kitchen sink to wash my hands, the water made a sound I hadn't heard since Wing B. That slow, deliberate drip that always knew when I was alone. I don't think I made it out. Not fully. I think there's a part of me still sitting in that chair, still facing the wall in that room that doesn't exist, still waiting to be overwritten again, because the memories aren't mine anymore. They come in waves, smells I can't place, hands that don't feel like mine when I look down, and that phrase, always that phrase. His memories retained beyond protocol thresholds. I searched for subject 0142, found nothing official, but on a dead FTP server I accessed through a nursing forum thread from 2003, I found a cache of files labeled with old sub-project codes. One of them was 0142, 4 pages, heavily redacted. But the keywords weren't blacked out, just faded MK Ultra. Yes, that MK Ultra, but under a different term, Dormouse variant, and the location? Wing B, Restricted Lab, Florida State Hospital. They were testing something beyond memory alteration, something to do with time adhesion, identity layering. One phrase kept appearing in the margins: post-liminal saturation event. Another, sympathetic memory grafting. And a third, circled twice in blue ink: multipass behavioral retention in non-consenting clinical staff. I think that was me. Not as a subject, as a receiver, like a dry sponge passed room to room, soaking up echoes of someone else's life. Someone who maybe never left that chair. Or maybe never existed outside the idea of needing to be observed. There was a time I thought I had a sister, not in dreams. In real, hard memory, I remember her birthday, what she called me when we were little, the scar on her left shoulder from falling off the garage roof. But when I brought her up to my father during one of his better days, he just stared and said, "You were an only child, honey. We always wanted more, but..." And that "but" hung in the air, like he was remembering something he wasn't allowed to say, or like he almost believed me, but protocol wouldn't let him. That's when I remembered the call. A voicemail on my old answering machine years ago, a woman sobbing softly saying, "They won't let me leave the room. You were right. The door isn't real." I deleted it. Thought it was a wrong number, but the tone, the cadence. It was my voice, just not from here. There are copies of us, fragments, tethered to places where the air learned to remember. Wing B is one of them. It isn't haunted, it's echoic. It stores people, not like files, like tones, held between walls and drips and folding corridors. Like it listens, like it wants to retain. I went back once more. Last month, not to explore, just to know if it was still there. The building's still standing, technically condemned, but untouched. No graffiti, no broken windows, no animals, like even the weather won't interfere. I walked the perimeter, counted each vent, each window, and at the fourth corner, I found the anomaly, a section of wall that was warm, not hot, warm, like breath. And when I pressed my ear to it, I heard someone repeating a sentence on loop over and over, so faint it could have been blood in my head. But I swear it said, "Please write it down before they make you clean again." And that was it. Just that over and over. I left a note under a loose brick, didn't sign it, just wrote the word retained and underlined it twice. I don't know who it was for, maybe for myself, maybe for whoever I was before, maybe for the next nurse who doesn't remember applying for the shift, doesn't remember choosing this building, doesn't remember what she knew before she walked in. Because that's the trick. You don't notice what's gone, you only feel what's left behind. Like phantom limbs of memory, you scratch the itch of a life that was never yours, but hurts anyway. I keep waking up to soft knocking now, not on the door, on the inside of the medicine cabinet. 3 knocks, pause, 3 again. Always when I'm about to drift off, I tried leaving the cabinet open. The knocking moved to the closet. I left that open too, then it came from the mirror. I've stopped closing anything. I spoke to a man from the state once. He said he was reviewing old staff logs from closed facilities. Said my name appeared 3 different times, across 2 decades. Same role, same floor, but different staff IDs. And one had a note in the margin. Memory loop observed. Maintain until subject self-terminates. I asked him what it meant. He said, "We don't write those. They're transcribed from audio." And when I asked whose audio, he hung up. That's what gets to me now. Not the hallucinations, not the fragments, but how casually it's done. How clean the seams are. How well practiced the edit becomes. Like there's a rhythm to forgetting, and we've all agreed to keep time. I tried to destroy the tape once, the original one. The one from that chair, but it wouldn't catch fire. Wouldn't snap, wouldn't break, just bent, warped, then returned to shape like it needed to remain, like it had been recorded on something deeper than plastic. I mailed it to myself in another city, 6 states away, addressed to a P.O. box I never opened. 2 weeks later, it was on my nightstand again. No postage, just sitting there, rewound. I don't listen to it anymore, but sometimes I wake up with it playing, and it's always the same voice mine, saying things I haven't said yet. Last night it said, "You are not the first narrator. You are just the most compliant. So if you found this file, if it got sent to your inbox, or appeared in a folder you didn't create, if it plays on its own when you swear your phone is off, do not save it, do not forward it, do not archive it, just listen. Once then, forget the name Delia, forget room 116B, forget the hallway that always ends 2 feet closer than yesterday. Forget the drip, forget the chair, forget the warmth in the wall, forget the phrase that repeats when no one is around, because I didn't. And now I exist in too many places to be whole again. Every reflection is off, every sound slightly misaligned, and every time I close my eyes, I feel the room wake up. Wing B wasn't a ward, it was a rewrite loop, an audio retention chamber built for memory overflow. When subject 0142's mind began to fracture past protocol, they needed vessels, living ones who could carry fragments without being believed. So they used us, the nurses, the ones already invisible, already disposable, already trained to record and forget. record and forget, record and forget. But I remembered too much, and now I don't know what parts of me were ever mine to begin with. Maybe I was just the echo. Maybe Delia was the source. Maybe we were the same person, just told to forget each other long enough to coexist. But I know this. I never applied for that job. I never moved to Florida. I don't remember packing. I don't remember living here before the first shift. I don't remember a childhood anymore. Just corridors, vents, the silence between drips. I think I was grown for this. I think they needed someone who wouldn't ask why the badge scanner still worked in a condemned wing. Someone who wouldn't question why a building remembered a name that had been erased. Someone who would sit down in the chair, face the wall, and become the next version of the story. That's what this is. Not a warning, not a confession. A version of someone who used to be whole, speaking through whatever was left. And if it plays again tomorrow, if this file shows up on someone else's drive, if you hear my voice on a machine you haven't used in years, don't listen twice. Because the second time, it remembers you back. And then the room will be waiting, just like it's waiting for me, now always still.